Hi, welcome back to another Read Aloud. This week we're continuing to work on wondering, and the book that we're going to read together today is called Mr. Putter and Tabby Drop the Ball. It's by Cynthia Rylant and Arthur Howard, and it is published by Harcourt Publishing. This week, as you continue to wonder, you're going to work on writing down some of your wonderings. And in addition to writing down your wonderings, you're also going to spend some time thinking about whether your wonderings were explained directly in the book, which means you just found the answer right there on a certain page or maybe a couple of pages. Or some of your wonderings might be answered indirectly. And indirectly means that there are clues that you can put together to figure out the answer, but it's not right there in the text. So today, as we are reading, I'm going to stop at a few points for you to think about what you're wondering about the story. I'll share what I'm wondering about the story, and then at the end of our reading, we'll talk about how some of my wonderings anyway may have been explained right there, directly in the book or indirectly in the book. Feel free to also write down some of your wonderings. Inside your packet this week, you should have a page for you to write down questions that you have, or you can just use a piece of paper. Since you're watching this on video, you can also take the time to pause my reading so you have time to write down your questions if you would like to. Mr. Putter and Tabby drop the ball. Mr. Putter and Tabby drop the ball. Mr. Putter and Tabby drop the ball. There are some chapters. Chapter 1 is baseball. Chapter 2, the team. Chapter 3, the dandies. Chapter 4, drop the ball. And Chapter 5, what a day. Chapter 1, Baseball. Mr. Putter and his fine cat Tabby loved to nap in the summertime. They loved napping in the garden. They loved napping on the porch. They loved napping in the car. It seems we nap all the time, Mr. Putter said to Tabby one day. Tabby was old and her frisky days were over. And the word frisky means that you're full of life and lots of energy. Tabby was old and her frisky days were over. She loved napping. I think we need a sport, said Mr. Putter. Tabby opened one eye. Take a moment now to think about what are you wondering in this part of the story. You may want to stop this video to write your wondering down. One thing I am wondering is what kind of sport could Mr. Putter and Tabby possibly do? So I'm very curious and I'm wondering what sport will they do? I think we need baseball, said Mr. Putter. Tabby opened the other eye. I wonder where my old mitt is, said Mr. Putter. He headed to the basement. Tabby was wide awake now. Chapter 2, the team. Mr. Putter found his mitt. Now all we need is a team, he told Tabby. Mr. Putter called his friend and neighbor, Mrs. Teaberry. Mrs. Teaberry would know about a team. She was very sporty. She even walked the dog-a-thon with her good dog Zeke. Of course there's a team, said Mrs. Teaberry. It's called the Yankee Doodle Dandies. Am I too old to play? Asked Mr. Putter. Ah, heavens no, said Mrs. Teaberry, handing Zeke a sniffy bone. You will feel young on that team. Will my knees feel young on that team? Asked Mr. Putter. "You are not too old, and neither am I," said Mrs. Teaberry. "We'll both play." Mr. Putter hung up the phone. "I hope I'm not too old," he said to Tabby. Tabby just purred. To her, Mr. Putter was perfect. Think about what's happened so far, and think about what you notice you're wondering about the story. What questions do you have? A question I have is kind of the same question that Mr. Putter has. He's hoping he's not too old to play, and my wondering is he too old to play? Chapter 3, The Dandies. Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke arrived in their baseball clothes. "Let's go," said Mrs. Teaberry. They all drove to the ball field. The Yankee Doodle Dandies were in the middle of a game. A batter was running for home. Everyone waited and waited and waited. "I'm feeling pretty young," said Mr. Putter. "Let's go play," said Mrs. Teaberry. She looked at Zeke. "Stay," she said, patting Zeke's head. Mr. Putter looked at Zeke. No way, Mr. Putter thought. I'm going to pause here because I notice I'm wondering something. I'd like you to think about this part of the story and think about what you might be wondering too. Here's what I'm wondering. My question is, why does Mr. Putter think no way? He petted Tabby and went to play. Chapter 4, Drop the Ball. The Yankee Doodle Dandies were very nice. They let Mr. Putter and Mrs. Teaberry play right away. Mr. Putter took the outfield. Mrs. Teaberry took shortstop. The batter came up. Swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. Thought Mr. Putter in the outfield. I could be taking a nap. Another batter came up. Swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a ground ball to second. Mrs. Teaberry leaped into action. She ran for the ball. Then, glomp. Zeke got the ball. He was very proud. He ran around and around in circles. "Drop the ball, Zeke," everyone yelled. Zeke did not drop the ball. The other team scored. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Teaberry. "Oh boy," thought Mr. Putter. Tabby purred in the dugout. Baseball was fun. Chapter 5, What a Day. Another batter came up. Swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a ground ball to third. Mr. Putter couldn't watch. Glomp. Zeke got the ball and ran in circles. The other team scored again. The Yankee Doodle Dandies were not happy. They benched Zeke. "Stay," they said. No way, thought Putter. The score was tied 2-2. If the other team scored again, the Dandies would lose. A batter came up. Swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a hit to the outfield. Mr. Putter leaped into action. He ran for the ball. It was rolling, rolling. Think about what's happening now in this part of the story. What question do you have? Remember, you might want to write down your question so you remember it at the end of the story. What I'm wondering is, will Mr. Putter get the ball? He'd have to bend down to get the ball. Mr. Putter tried to bend down, but his knees said, "No way." The Dandies were about to lose, but then... glomp! Zeke got the ball. Zeke looked at Mr. Putter. Mr. Putter looked at Zeke. Then Zeke jumped. He jumped and he put that ball right into Mr. Putter's mitt. Then Mr. Putter threw that ball to home. And because the batter was 100 years old and hadn't gotten there yet, the Dandies got him out. Hooray! The game ended in a tie. The Dandies carried Zeke on their shoulders, and they gave Tabby a ride in the Peanuts box. What a day! Mr. Putter and Tabby and Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke ate 10 free bags of peanuts and drank 3 gallons of water. Then they all found a nice spot in the dugout and took a long nap. Zeke's feet twitched a lot, but he couldn't help it. He was still in the game. Mr. Putter, outfield. Tabby, bench warmer. Mrs. Teaberry, shortstop. Zeke, first base, second base, third base, outfield, catcher, and mascot. If you wrote down your questions, please take those out now. If you've just been holding your questions in your head, that's all right, but keep those questions in your mind. Think about which of your questions were answered right there in the text, directly in the story. You'll know it was answered directly if I turned the page and kept reading and there was your answer. Which one of your questions were answered directly and how were they answered? One of my questions that was answered directly was my very first question. Do you remember when we read that Mr. Putter thought they needed a sport? And I was wondering, what sport are they going to play? By just turning and reading the next page, I read that he said, "I think we need baseball." And then as I continued to read, they did indeed play baseball. So the answer was directly there in the text. The sport that he ended up playing was baseball. I had another question, though, that was answered indirectly in the text. Do you remember when Mr. Putter and Tabby and Mrs. Teaberry and Zeke first got to the ball field? We read that Mrs. Teaberry said, "Stay," and patted Zeke on the head. Then we read that Mr. Putter looked at Zeke. "No way," Mr. Putter thought. My question was, what does Mr. Putter mean when he says, "No way"? The author, Cynthia Rylant, never told me right there in the book why he said "no way," but she gave me many, many clues. I'll show you some of them. Do you remember this part when Zeke stole the ball? Then he did it again. They tried to make him stay in the dugout, but he wouldn't stay, not even after they put him and told him to stay there. So now when I think back to what Mrs. Teaberry told Zeke to do, she said, "Stay," and patted him on the head. I can figure out that Mr. Putter must know Zeke well enough to know that he's not going to stay if there are balls that are around for him to catch. It doesn't tell me that right there in the text, but I'm able to put the clues together to make an inference to answer the question indirectly. Today we read Mr. Putter and Tabby Drop the Ball. As we were reading, we were noticing what we were wondering, what questions we had. You may have written down some of your questions. I hope you did. And then after we read, we thought about if we found the answers to our questions. Some of our questions were answered directly, right there in the text, and some of our questions were answered indirectly, where we had to use clues to figure them out. I am looking forward to seeing you again soon. I hope that you are enjoying your reading time, and take care.